Hello and welcome back to Split Decision. In this week's episode, we are going to be almost exclusively talking about the Red Bull Homeground Tokyo, which both myself and Mitch will be commentating at. So we've decided to basically talk through the format, talk through the teams, or I guess what we understand of the format. And I want to premise this now by saying we are recording this on Monday the 23rd. So if you're watching this maybe on the 25th, where like some of the teams have announced some players, or maybe the first matchups have come out, we didn't know those matchups. We're not as stupid as we might look.
There's going to be a lot of assumptions made here. I mean, the thing is, we'll talk about them, right? We'll talk about why the format isn't not being known to us, even it affects it so much. It's going to be a crazy event either way.
Yeah, well, to start off, we've got like what Liquipedia has stated. I'm sure somewhere they've taken this somewhere deep within the Red Bull website, which we probably should have read in great depth.
Navigated entirely.
So yeah, obviously the event starts November the 3rd, ends on November the 5th. It's a best of 5 grand final. Now, our assumption, so from what it says, is there's going to be a Swiss system. Each team plays 2 best of 1s. So obviously with 8 teams, there's going to be 4 opening matchups. Then the winners play each other, and if they win, then they can have a chance to be top 2. They go straight into the semifinals. And then the losers play each other, and if they lose 2, they're out. It's definitely quite a brutal first day of format.
Yeah.
8 best of 1s, but you get a look at every single team. And I would say as long as the seeding is done okay, then I think that for the most part that should be fine. Like the only problem we thought of said is be like if somehow it was like Fnatic DRX foot Cloud9 and something like that happened, that might be horrific, but for the most part it should be okay.
Realistically, it should be like Pool A, Pool B would be my guess. You just have 2 pools of teams, match them up against each other for the first round. Things should work out where no favorites get eliminated unless they underperform massively. Yeah, because you can imagine the reality with like a Fnatic DRX first round, a C9 100 Thieves first round. Now, one of those teams could, both of those teams could face each other, and one of them will be going home, and that would sting. Yeah. But again, you know, if it's that way, I guess it's just luck of the draw.
Yeah. And then from then onwards, basically 6 teams go through. So only 2 teams are going to go out from the best of 1s, which I do quite like because best of 1s can be randomized. But you have to understand, they've picked a badass arena. They're not going to be able to book that out for weeks. It's like Red Bull always do this with their venues. I don't know if you saw, I think it was their event recently for, what's the other event called? The one that was in the Swiss Alps. That was really cool.
I saw the pictures going up. Looked amazing.
What's the collegiate event called? My mind's gone blank.
Campus Clutch.
Campus Clutch, that's the one. That was really cool. They do this, so it's the Raigoku Kogugikan Arena. And I don't think I've said that perfectly, but I know that Ian has been practicing it.
I can imagine.
So Ian is going to be hosting. If you don't know Ian, he's a very fun host. He'll be someone that I think you'll enjoy.
He's a great
watching,
guy.
He's basically been just practicing that. I met him for breakfast. He's like, I've got to make sure I get at least that right. And then Rim was going, you could also say this in Japanese. And he just went, ha! I'm going to get that wrong.
Oh, man. Ian's pronunciations have always been a favorite of mine. So I can't wait to see him take this one on.
I want to hear that accent with Japanese. It just sounds like it's
roll off the tongue.
Yeah. It will be so far from what you expect it to be that someone wouldn't even find it offensive. But yeah, basically top 2 teams from the entire group stage, if you win both of your games, you go straight through to the semifinals. If you are within that 3 to 6 position, you go into the quarterfinals. And the very top, so I assume that's going to be done by round difference, actually gets to pick which semifinal they have. Now, based on what happened last year, normally, well, at least what they did before was the 2 quarterfinals and 1 semifinal was played on day 2, and then the other semifinal is played on day 3 alongside the grand final. So you definitely, like, getting that first place could be quite impactful if that's the way the format is done. I won't lie, for my own well-being, I hope that's how it's done, because 4 best of 3s in one day, it would be a bit rough either way. Like, I think it's the lesser of evils, but it is still a little bit rough. Obviously, one team will have to play semi-final and final, so you're going to want to try and make sure that you get that first place in the group.
Yeah, I think like the thing about playing your match and then having to go straight into the grand final as well, Like that's incredibly tough to do. If they do
Yeah.
go that route, like I wouldn't blame them for a 4BO3. Maybe like especially we were talking earlier about maybe there being a B stream or something like that could help it out. But I imagine we're going to be looking at 3-2, same as last time. And in that
Yeah.
case, I guess you can argue that you'll be warmed up. It looks like they've got an opening ceremony and stuff planned. I saw some announcements over live acts they're going to be playing in the finals. So I'd assume, you're getting an hour, maybe 2 hours of a break in between. It's a rough schedule, but, fair play if they can make it work.
It's basically if you blitz your semifinal, then it could sort of help as a warm up. But
For sure.
yeah.
If it's dragged out,
Realistically, you want to be that team that gets to play the last semifinal, because also then you're playing against the team who played a quarterfinal in the same day. So either way, it's going to end up with like there will be a team that has to play a quarterfinal and a semifinal if they do the 4 best of 3 days. So I don't think there's when you have a 3-day event, there is no great way to do it. There's a best possible scenario, and I think that this is kind of how it's going to look out. Other than that, yeah, grand final is going to be best of 5. I don't believe there's been too much information about prize pool yet, or at least it's not listed. So the next thing really is to just get into some of the teams. Now, obviously, some teams still not completely announced. As of Monday, the 23rd of October, for anybody who goes, actually, I'm watching this video now at 100 Thieves. Yeah, we didn't see that yet. So
I guess we should say at 9 p.m. CEST as well, just in case the midnight hour comes.
Actually,
and
it's 8:50.
Something pops up. Sorry, my bad.
You never know what could happen in the next 10 minutes, Mitch.
That's true. That's true.
But either way, some of the teams that we do have announced. So I guess that's probably the best place to start. So we already got to see a little bit of Cloud9 playing at the 10 Invitational, which they won. Now, I'm not going to take massive amounts away from that because I believe DRX were playing with one of their academy players, but it's still not a bad sign for them, Mitch.
No, it's not at all. Good to see Emmy succeeding over there across the ocean, across the pond. I mean, in reality, when you look at this roster, it's hard to believe that they're going to be underachieving. Whippy back in there. I mean, we talked about this in our last video as well about how underrated this guy is in general. Realistically, coming into this event, I don't know where to chalk them up, but when you're winning an event off rip, I think that puts you up a few points in my estimations.
Yeah, I'd say in terms of the players they've got, clearly I think they're also players that Imi enjoyed working with because some of them are like XG2 or even XV1 or players that he will have worked with in the past. So I don't doubt that that's part of the reason they've been brought in. I think Vanity being brought back as an IGL is a great shout. And even just having some like young stars as well. I think Oxy is if not one for now, definitely one for the future. And he's someone that under these sort of players, I think is only going to get better and better. And for me personally as well, I still think that Zeppa is incredibly underrated. Like I think that he's a huge talent. So I think that they can definitely do some damage at this tournament. Obviously, they're probably still working out some of their map pool, but they're probably a lot more prepared than a lot of the other teams. So I would say, at least from my perspective, this team at a minimum should be looking for a semi-final slot. I do question though if they're going to be up to a Fnatic or maybe a DRX actually having like RB and Zest back and not playing with Foxy and I've forgotten the name of their academy player. His name is Flashback. There you go. Flashback, who is playing with them over at 10. So maybe when they have the full roster, that might be a little bit more difficult. But I think even still just beating a team that has Buzz, Stacks, Marco, and then Foxy and them, I think that that's still a decent start.
For sure. I mean, speaking about teams that won the event off rip as well, C9 can do it with their full roster, but could they do it with the coach, Tom?
With Imi, of course. I have full faith that they could have won with Imi playing.
Not bad.
Because otherwise, he will let me know if I say anything else.
Yeah, I thought it might be something along those lines. But you know what? I can tell you Foot would be able to do it. And you might call me biased for it. You might say, hey, it's because of the beautiful sweatshirt they gave you, the wonderful shorts. Could be the jacket or even the hat. I mean, your guess is as good as mine. But
Didn't
the reality
you
is
predict, like G2 to beat them like multiple times.
No, I don't remember that. And actually, I don't know why you would even suggest such a thing, Tom.
Okay.
you could quit fabricating false evidence over there.
Yeah, false
I believed in Foot from day one. And well, Tom, look, I got a grand finals prediction screenshot here. If I actually send it to Zilf, I probably won't. Of our predictions, and you know, I knew that Foot were gonna win that. So at the end of the
Zilf,
day,
if you were to accidentally put one of his predictions of him winning,
don't do
G2
that
over them,
No. I'm seeing how I set myself up here. Don't do that, Zilf. Zilf. Hey, listen. I asked for a very specific thing. You wouldn't let me down like that, would you?
Which way did you go on this one, Mitch?
This time I did stick with
G2.
Of course, I earlier on shouted my support for
Petra.
Please.
Or you could just add in a clip here of Logan clutching versus Alliance.
Oh
that
my
would also
god,
be
bro!
else you could
No, you couldn't. No, that's DMCA-able. I'm not sure about Tom. Our content, you know, using clips. I'd like to ask permission from those channels first, and you know, at the end of the day, I'm gonna text them after this video and tell them to ignore everything you and Zilf send them for the next couple weeks. So we're good.
Okay,
we're sweet.
All right, but yeah, I do think like CNED looked insane. Like we were sort of talking about like CNED playing within a Turkish team again. His Raze looked really good. That was the one thing we went into every match going, well, he's on Raze though, and then he was just like dropping like was it 29 kills in the grand final? Like the dude was just on something. He seemed like, just seeing him around the event, he's always quite a happy dude, but he just seemed very happy. Like he did loving being back in Istanbul. And I believe he's someone who also really enjoys Japan. So I think that their team as a whole looks great. Yedaje, I think a decent first step onto the stage.
Sure.
Like had some shakier games, but when you have players like Cracks and Ada Captain, and even Mr. Fallen himself, other than the obviously being sick for the grand final, he was their best player up until the grand final. Like he was absolutely shitting on everyone that walked into his crosshair. So I think they're a dark horse. I think they're a dark horse to win it, honestly.
100%. Yeah. Look, I mean, not even considering what they were able to do with their coach, they already looked like they were a team that was going to take that convincingly. Mr. Fallen had like
they didn't lose a map.
Map on map. Mr. Fallen was just heating up. Like the guy, like, so I guess so much so that he ended up with a fever. But the poor, like he ended up, by the way, on that grand final day, he ended up with 2 injections to get himself on his feet to try and get back to play. And he didn't feel well enough when he got there, so he stepped to the side.
He was there, though.
He was still there, you know? He still turned up from the goddamn hospital, knowing he wasn't well enough to play, to watch his teammates and you know, see them lift that trophy, which is just unbelievable. And I mean, their opponents' focus as well were a joy to watch. They look so good. But obviously, they've not made it all the way to home ground in Japan. So, yeah, the qualifier was insane. What a fantastic group of games we had.
Yeah, I think the one thing for me with Foot that was maybe a little bit more worrying was that some of those games are incredibly close. So I think like you then have to, even though I do like this new focus roster and looking at like, well, they smashed Heretics, so maybe that's not a fair comparison, but like I think that ultimately you do have to realize that even though Focus played well, some of their next opponents could be a Fnatic or a DRX, and like that's where I do feel like we'll see a true test of them, because even like Cloud9, whatever 100 Thieves end up fielding, they're going to be good teams, but not a team that has played together for an entire year. Like, I think that's just a different ballpark. And yeah, sure, Fnatic, new coach, we'll talk about that later, but it's not the same. Like, the synergy that those players will have, I think that there's going to be a decent peak from Foot. It's just whether, okay, can they beat either of those two? If they can, okay, we're talking about something special going into 2024.
Yeah, for sure. It's a real test for them, I guess. Really see how hot they're coming in. You know, the reality is, I think we saw the benefit of a team when we were at those qualifiers, of a team having that core of 4 at least, or of 3, where they're able to, especially coaching staff staying over, the synergy that brings, the fact that, I'll put it this way, you have a coach who was able to step in and play on a grand final and look incredible. Like, he fit the team perfectly. He played his role. He had, everyone afterwards was like, you know, he played professionally. I was like, oh yeah, we were wondering because we couldn't find anything on him. Yeah, CS back in 2017. It's like, well, I'm not counting that. That's not even close. Like, that's so long ago. He was playing CS for the Turkish national team at one point. He won the national competition. national CS tournament, whatever that was
He
at the
has
time.
4 matches on record.
You know what I mean? It's like he played high level Turkish regional CS, and that they're like, yeah, he's ex-professional. Of course he did well. No, that was an insane performance. But I think that just goes to
Played
highlight.
for a team called Sons of Snakes.
Oh, it's a cool name. Have they got a logo? Is it one of these cool logos someone whipped up overnight? Or it's just a question mark?
It is a snake.
Okay, cool snake. What's the Tom Biz rating?
It's all right. I think it's kind of cool. I'll send it to you.
You don't sound very convinced. That's pretty cool, Tom. Come on, give him some credit. Give him some credit. That's a cool snake. So they've got a cool Cobra logo. All right. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but Tom said kind of cool. I said very cool. You guys let us know. I don't know which side it's on. I'm going to point to either side, and Zilv can
I'm just going to send it
screen grab
to
it.
Zilv now with no context.
Yeah,
But,
please do. He's going to think we're calling him a snake, which is going to read poorly for the poor guy. I think he's going to be panicking, but it is what it is. Tom, what I'm saying is to get to the end of this point, I don't know how we got onto snake logos. Guys looked incredible, and he was able to fit in. You can imagine what it means to a player to have a coach telling them how to play that understands their level of play, so much so that he can implement it with, 0 pracs. Unbelievable. And I think that's kind of what we're worried about Fnatic losing with Mini not being there anymore, is all that synergy that's built up over time, not just with the game plan, but with knowing the players as well, is it's hard to replicate.
Just random tidbit, but he actually played on a team with Gandhi, who was the ex-coach of Supermassive Blaze. There you go.
Wow. There you go. Yeah, but a lot of people around from multiple different teams and streamers as well from Turkey said it to me that oh yeah, he's very well respected in the CS community. Like he was a good player within the Turkish scene. So, but again, I don't think that sort of stomps down the massive performance that he had in any way. The guy was still way out of his comfort zone.
He played really well. So moving on, we've gone Cloud9, we've done Foot. I think the logical I'm going to go DRX just because DRX have made 0 changes.
Yep.
So I feel like
quick and easy.
Them in now kind of makes sense. They are the team that performed decently well last year, as they always do. They got themselves. They played in the 10 Invitational, but as said, that was with a stand-in. I don't know if they're going to be doing that again. We saw them play at Champions, finish 5th to 6th, the classic DRX. So ultimately, I'm going to look at this event and say it might be a good opportunity, especially with it being within Asia. They always seem to perform well at home. We've seen that when they are in Korea. They're normally first, but PaperX kind of stole that from them recently. I think for them here, they've got to be aiming for a top 2. Like, they're one of the only unchanged teams. I think the only even rumor comes with, I think it's Termi. I think that's the only possible change that's even being slightly rumored, is there's like a could leave no info when we're looking at Flynn's spreadsheet. Other than that, everybody else except Buzz is locked in, and if Buzz leaves, I'm going to absolutely lose my mind. Not just because he's an insane player, but because he will instantly sign for one of their opposition if they do that.
Make it a lot tougher.
I don't think that Buzz is going to be leaving. But I think, again, like, you've got the coaching staff of like Argency Glow. It seems like they're building more and more depth behind this roster, as they always do. I think the top 2 with what they have is a minimum, and the only reason I'm not saying top 1 is because of Fnatic.
It's funny because with DRX, it's like that's it essentially. There's not a whole lot more that you need to talk about with these guys because the expectations are set. This should be their event, one that they come in, and you can think about it as we go through as well, Tom. At the end, I was thinking we go top 4. Like, who are your top 4 teams, and narrow it down to the top 2, because it's very hard to just spit out 2 team names amongst all of these, especially with DRX in the mix with Cloud9 White. Or Cloud9 coming in with the win. So used to saying Cloud9 White. And Foot obviously grabbing the dub as well. So and then there's a some no-name team called Fnatic that are coming in.
Yeah,
I
we
didn't.
can just move on to that now if you want.
Let's go. Let's swing in. You know, they're the fourth team that you sort of think like, holy, like this squad could achieve so much at this event. Like, there's a world that they do just come in and dominate the whole thing, and I mean, history has the precedent already set for that to happen, I feel.
Yeah, I would say like they're the team you really just don't want to play. Like, especially
Yeah.
for the new. Well, it's weird for the new teams. You might want to play them to try and learn some stuff. Obviously, the only real caveat we can put is that they're going through a coaching staff change.
Yeah.
Bringing in Elmer Putty, who like obviously if you knew Gen G, you knew that he
For a
was
long
playing-
time.
He was with them, but also he's been a coach for a while in CS as well. So it's not like this is his first rodeo by any stretch of the imagination. He was with Genji again, he was with Order, and he was even with Cloud9 over in CS. So as someone with a lot of experience, I think obviously I think a lot of people are looking at this as like a okay, like it's he is coming in to replace Mini. People rate Mini highly, but a lot of the time it's okay. Boaster is sort of the creative mind, and Mini is like that balance, someone who's able to just work very well with him. So I guess the main sort of thing we're going to be looking at with Elmer Putty is that relationship there? Like, is he going to be as impactful as like Mini was in some of those tack timeouts, and also just with general structure and management of the players? I think that's going to be a huge part of his job. Other than that, though, that's the thing. It's almost like, I don't want to call it a poison chalice, but for whoever is coaching that team, in this case, Elmer Putty, if you're not winning events, it's not good enough. Because they won 2 events last year. That's the only parameter. Like, they could finish second at every event this year and we go, okay, but that's still worse than Mini did. So it's really, really tough. He's taken on what will seem like the easiest and the toughest job. Like, you've been given the best team of 2023, but you now have to make it look just as good, if not better. That's so tough to do.
Yeah, I think the lucky thing is that with Fnatic, it's very unlikely that he needs to make any changes. That squad is looking good, probably will for a while. But when it comes to the point,
if he does,
of making
I'm fighting him.
That's the thing. 6 months from now, a year from now, if he's still in there, there's going to come a time where potentially a change is coming. Even Ye found his way off of Optic. This is the reality of life. It could happen, and I think
Optic
that's like the
found
biggest
their way
challenge.
to not exist.
That's
I don't know if that's
also
the best
true.
example in the world.
Even Artis found his way out of Navi. There you go. So there's a world where that change does have to come through for whatever reason, and it'll be a tough day if another team ever tries to outbank Fnatic. That's what I mean. Like, it's not likely to happen.
I will say though, for this event, it's going to be really interesting because again, they're going back to Japan. They're going in as favorites. I don't think there's any questions about it. They're one of the 2 teams that hasn't been like massively overhauled or just not really up to the standard of others. Also, they are a 2-time champion, one of those being in Japan, and they've made 0 roster changes other than the coach. So, and analyst. SLK has gone as well. I actually think that that's going to be an interesting one for me because I feel like obviously for an analyst, this is like the dream job to get to go work with Boaster, Elmer Putty, the decent structure behind the organization, some of the best players in the world. Again, I feel like it's going to be one of those almost thankless jobs because especially when you have such a famous in-game leader, I do feel like a lot of the time the coaching staff are not going to get the credit, especially after last year. So I'll be interested to see how that dynamic works with like an analyst coming in and whether or not they'll actually be considered as good as maybe they could be. But yeah, I think for Fnatic, they almost have to win. And I think that's the scary thing for them is after last year and without the likes of like Loud, EG being in this event, the only thing they have is to win. And Paperex as well, I guess. Paperex is another huge example. None of those teams being there. And if they don't win, I guarantee the fan pressure is going to be off the charts because expectations on this roster are so high. They are the clear favorites. They've just made a coaching change. And the thing is, the fans really loved the coach they had before. And the only thing is it seemed like Mini needed a break. That seems like it is. It's not that he's a bad coach and they needed to get rid of him. It's the complete opposite. They wanted to keep him. So I do think that even though for most teams it's like, yeah, off-season, fun event, I still think for Fnatic, there's like, okay, we kind of need to win this just so that people are like, oh yeah, Fnatic's still good. Nice tinge, boys.
Keep the ball rolling. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel that way very much. Like, it's one of those things where even if you come in and think, oh, you know, we don't have to win this, yada yada, it might still be hard to get out of that habit of just feeling the weight of expectation put on you by the fan base, put on you by, again, the history that this roster has. You don't expect them to come in and struggle even when they're on downtime, even when they're not fully pracked up. And historically as well, that's been what we've seen from these guys. When they do come in and take it easy at an event, they still look like, you know, if not the best, one of the best teams in the world. So I put it this way, they won't be finishing outside the top 4 with a smile on their face. I don't think they'll be finishing outside the top 1 with a smile on their face.
Yeah, I think unless the best of ones go horrifically, you'd kind of hope that that was the case. But you never know. Crazier things have happened. Now, next, I think I'm going to leave the 2 Japanese teams till last because I feel like there's three Japanese teams till last. Because I feel like it's a little bit more interesting. I want to start with 100 Thieves. Now, we head into Rumor City because,
yes, we do.
As said, as of right now, which is 9:09 CST on the 23rd of October.
So you're reading off court records. Okay.
I should check Twitter now. No, I'm kidding. We only have 3 players on this roster, and that is Cryo, Asuna, and Bang. Obviously, Zix has joined as the coach, which I think is a cool move. Someone coming over from EG, and Mike's has gone over as assistant coach. And the other 2 spots are rumors. And also, so EU seems to be like the one that's kind of not locked in, but the one that's expected to happen. Obviously, they had a great previous season. We've already spoken about it in the last video, but someone who plays a lot of Sova, more Sova than most, and is fantastic. Then the nature sort of rumors are actually, again, I feel like I'm going into the Reddit hive mind here, but there was rumors that Boostio was going to join and be IGL. Then it's like, okay, Nature's joining, but then there's also some people saying it's like, yeah, but that's because Boostio's contract lasts until the end of the year. So maybe Nature will play this tournament and then Boostio will join for less money in 2024. So
you never know. Like, realistically, with the situation on EG, that seems, I would never entertain something so unlikely, especially when you have like, oh, the team is fielding a roster. So what the, like, I would ignore all rumors at that point. But with EG's like seeming collapse, I think those players might be somewhat desperate if there's 1 or 2 leaving the roster already to just be like, okay, we have to go somewhere, you know? And from what we've seen of the rumors in NA, it seems like everybody's trialing EG players across the board, which again, fair play to them. You need to, even just to show that you're interested, that there is interest in you rather to your organization. I don't know where they're going to get with that, but God, it could be awkward.
Yeah, and it also seems to fit with like obviously Nature, who is someone I believe has been playing on more of like a free agent team since playing with TSM. So obviously someone that was released from his contract. So maybe the story does kind of fit that, like him being picked up, especially if he is taking over IGL. That'd be quite interesting because I believe like maybe he IGL'd a bit in some of the previous teams, but like that's quite a lot of pressure to put on. Like, okay, you're coming from TSM, now you're going in as an IGL for 100 Thieves for a tournament. So
I wonder as well if it's like, especially if his future on the roster would depend on a performance, that would obviously be a ton of extra pressure. But on the upside, likelihood is he still will outlast Eccles there. So in good form.
Jesus fucking Christ. It depends when they announce him.
That's true, actually. Because
if they announce him like the day before and then they drop him the day after, then he's only there for like 4 days.
Took your record, bro.
Because I've got nothing left.
Oh, no. We miss Eccles. Get him back in the 100 Thieves jersey. Imagine after all this, all the rumors, he just walks out on the stage in the 100 Thieves jersey. I'm back, baby.
And they win the title.
They win it all. Hell yeah.
I'll run across the stage shirtless if that happens.
All right, okay, now we're talking.
Nate Shot's pulling out the checkbook as we speak.
It's like, he's a man of his word. Let's get the money down.
Yeah, I think obviously, I think like going into this, Cryo, it's someone I think Jet being nerfed a little bit might make him go even closer to the chamber, which I think
Yeah,
would actually
right?
be really exciting because he was a fucking nuts chamber.
Terrifying.
I also think Arsena's an insane raise as well, so they have a possibility for a nasty 1-2 punch. I think with like EU being a great support player, Nature being someone who kind of flexes with initiators and Viper, this team could be good. It's just well, obviously we don't know how much they've been practicing. If the Boostio rumor is true, they might have been practicing with Boostio even though they're going into this tournament. So it's a lot of unknowns for this roster at the moment, but I think like even just being the defending champions of last year, they seem to come into these off-season events feeling pretty confident. All the pressure's kind of gone for them as well, especially when you're just rebuilding a team. So I think there's a good opportunity for them to do some damage. Winning it again, maybe not. Like you have to remember last year, like you had Liquid with a couple of stand-ins, like and brand new Cloud9, which the one that ended up folding. So I think the competition this year is a little bit more stacked, but you never know.
Yeah, I think that's a fair summary for 100 Thieves. And we've covered C9, DRX, Fnatic, Foot already. You know,
where do you want to go next?
That's in my mind. That's the top 4 I've just mentioned: C9, DRX, Fnatic, Foot. Like it's tough to break in there for any of these teams. But yeah, I mean, I guess ZETA next, right? ZETA seems to be the most basic one to go to next because you know we covered it in the last video, but they're more or less the same. One new player coming in, Hero Ron.
But they've still got one unannounced as well.
How to pronounce
That's the other thing. They've got a player missing because although Crow is still there, he's gone into the coaching role. Well, one of the 3 coaching roles. XQQ's become a content creator, as did Ken, I believe. Laz, Depp, and Sugar Zero seems to be a great place to start. I believe Hero Ran as well is a Sentinel player coming from FENNEL, which obviously we then have to talk about FENNEL in a bit, which that one's a bit more messy. But the weird thing about this team is as of today, it seems like, well, they didn't announce it. It got accidentally announced, and then Bodork tweeted it, so that's where I got it from. Carl Lau has joined them, the ex-coach of Furia.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, because the first thing I asked when I saw that was, like, maybe there's a situation here where he's actually fluent in...
There is like a crossover of, like... I heard this when we were in Brazil. There's a lot of Japanese people living in Brazil.
Right.
But then the Bodork also tweeted that they're planning on signing the Northeption manager as a Toyo as a translator. So maybe
So the one thing I'll say, because the most similar experience I could relate to hearing that from was from Fraud. And when Fraud went over, one of the big questions I had for him when we were sat there eating some pizza. God, what a good memory. I miss you, Fraud. When we were sat there chatting about the tournament stuff, I was like, man, how hard must it be to like learn some of the lingo and stuff? And he was like, oh no, I was already fluent in Portuguese. Like I speak it fluently, or like close to. He spoke it very well, and it was spoken around him growing up. So he was very comfortable with it. But they still hired a translator because at first both he was like, you know, I don't want to come in and assume I'm good enough and then find out on the fly that I'm not able to pick it up. So he had a translator because of that. And also the organization was like, yeah, you know, let's try it out with a translator first and then let's see how it goes. So I think it was in the interest of both parties. So I wonder if it's a case like that, because otherwise, you know, there's one of 2 possibilities. One, he's just going to speak through the translator, which I think is really tough because we've spoken a lot about team chemistry with coaches, and you're going to miss a lot of that if it's always having to be put through someone else. The other is that he's just playing pickup Japanese. He's going to just try it on the fly, and, you know, fair play, because I don't think that's going to be very easy. It does strike me there must be some base level there that he's going to expand on. Maybe he studied in school, the best I can come up with.
I don't know, but yeah, well, I guess that's something we'll have to find out down the line. Definitely an interesting decision, but I like that they're thinking outside of the box. There was also a rumor at one point that Aspas was going to go there, so maybe he got some false promises.
That would be unfortunate. Aspas, no, I'm not so sure about.
Aspas is well, he's already joined Leviathan, so I'm fairly certain that's not happening. But yeah, I think that, again, especially the fact that they still haven't announced even their 4th player, and even the rumors of their 5th doesn't seem to exist. My expectations are not the highest. I will say though that Hero Ran coming in could, in theory, free up Laz a little bit more, maybe to play more of a flex or even to go back to a chamber or something. So I'm excited to see what they're going to pull out, because I feel like freeing up someone like him could actually make this team quite a bit more exciting, get them back to like the dream run Zeta, which, if we're being honest, doesn't seem to exist as much anymore. Like, they can do a little bit of damage, but not really compete at these level of events. So I don't know. I think that they'll probably still be the best of the Japanese teams, but that doesn't necessarily mean that much going into this event.
Yeah, big. I mean, yeah, just big question marks. It depends who that other player is going to be. It could be a superstar. Maybe that's where Demon One's going. Who knows?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So he's also good. So they borrowed a Brazilian coach to help out.
To be honest with you, Demon One, he's from Ranked. That's where he grew up. I think in Ranked, a lot of the time, your duelist either has everybody muted or just doesn't speak. So,
okay.
To be honest with you, it might work out.
Okay.
Could be perfect.
Right. Well, I guess we'll get on to the last couple of teams now. Obviously, this is where I feel like both of our knowledge shrinks a little bit in terms of. I won't lie and say that I've watched a load of the Japanese qualifier, and even just understanding some of the. So obviously, we'll start with FENNEL. Now, FENNEL already had some issues because, well, as we rumored in the last one, Hero Ran was their player, so him leaving is already going to be problematic. They have a lot of players that are very, very flexible though. Like Deriali is someone who seems to play Initiator, Controller, Sentinel, just flex all across. He even played a bit of Duelist back in the past, was part of Northception for a while as well. So again, not a bad player to take out of Japan. Ciota is probably going to be their Duelist, but also plays Viper, as you do.
Nice. Respect it.
The only problem they've had is they qualified for this.
Let's go.
And then XDLL was doing a little bit of smurfing on the side.
Yep.
And has been suspended for this event.
Just ludicrous.
So it's not great.
Absolutely
they've lost
insane.
one of their players to Zeta, and then one of their other players who they qualified with is now suspended.
Like this is scary, man. Just for smurfing. And I think, well, did you say earlier it was account sharing as well? Because if it's both,
I think so.
Then you're also probably boosting your friend's account, right?
FENNEL has temporarily suspended player. This is Bodork again.
Yeah.
Player XDLL from their Valorant roster due to smurfing and playing on another person's account. FENNEL will need to find a replacement for the upcoming Red Bull Homeground tournament starting at.
I can only imagine, bro. Like, imagine as an example, like you're Ascendant, your buddy is down in Silver, and you're just like, they played CS, you know, they know how to aim. You just need to play a couple games with them, and they'll get the swing of it. They're just like, whoa, why is there a dog coming at me? Do I shoot it? Do I not shoot it? One of those things. My goodness, and then you lose, you know, what is one of the biggest opportunities of your career potentially, because of it. That fucking sucks. Don't do it. I guess it's not worth it.
Yeah,
it's not worth it.
That's the thing. It's
Let your buddy be Silver.
I can assume that obviously from FENNEL's perspective, this has got to be infuriating, but
definitely. Oh my, can you imagine?
But that for them especially, it's like, because that's the thing, it's probably going to be playing through Ascension next year. That's going to be the attempt. Obviously, only one team comes out of the entirety of Pacific, so making that run is incredibly difficult. But also now one of your main chances to play an international LAN event against some of the best teams in the world basically just lost it for doing something a bit dumb.
Yeah.
That's about it. It's like, I don't know the context of what he was smurfing in or what he was account sharing in.
Sure.
Obviously, if it was some sort of premier tournament, then I feel like it's a little bit different because you can actually qualify for. If it's ranked, then yeah, that's just peak. But
that's
like
unbelievable, man. And it's one of those.
Well, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
If
you're a professional player, don't smurf.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, plenty do as well. That's the thing. And I can only imagine as an org, you can't even be that mad. You're not like, screw you for cheating, man. It's just like, oh, bro, why? Why?
I do feel like the context matters a little bit.
Of course, absolutely, absolutely.
But yeah,
Off that
it's
information,
definitely a little bit rough.
Not too bad.
But yeah, so we don't know who's going to be playing it. I think even still, like I have a lot of respect for their coach, Jonta, the Ukrainian,
Yep.
who was on One Breath Gaming, Heretics, FPX. Even like he actually took over the coach for Doombros for a bit. Doombros became the assistant coach, and then went back to being the coach again. I don't think that's any reflection on Jonta
No,
as a
for
coach,
sure.
just more so how much they like Doombros. But he was also someone who was around a long time in CS, and it does seem like him taking over this roster has made a decent difference. So I'm sure they're still going to be tough to play against. I don't think I do feel like they're one of the teams though that I have within the bottom two, and I think mainly that's just because you look at the rest of the competition, and I like even like Foot coming out of the EMEA qualifier and like whoever 100 Thieves bring in, I think they should still be able to get through this roster.
Yeah, I agree. I think the objective for these guys, and I guess the outlook realistically is that no matter what, if they win a game, that's a huge step forward, a huge legitimizing factor for either roster. I think FENNEL though might fare better than SCARZ from what I've seen, based
SCARZ
on the
have
fact
one
that
player listed right now.
yeah, that's sort of where I'm coming from, because you know the roster before was great. They almost managed to make it through Ascension. You know,
Yeah.
grand final loss to Bleed, acceptable. But
Yeah.
now things are looking a little scary because it's just Yoshi, right?
Unfortunately, Gem Kim has gone to RRQ, so he definitely isn't playing.
Poached.
In theory, the rest of the team seems like they could, but I don't think they will be. But yeah, Gem Kim was one of the driving force. From what I heard, as from speaking to like Spin in my amazing interview, that he said that even they were like talking to Gem Kim as well. So it seemed like he was hot property within Pacific in general. I think a lot of players were looking at him. So I don't think it's a surprise that he's ended up going. I think he should be in the league, so not really that surprising. Maybe a little bit unfortunate that he then doesn't get to play at this event, but that's a completely different story. And then they've also got Toroneko and Crystal, who are both inactive. And on the roster, Alan is inactive, but again, according to rumors, I believe this is another Bodok tweet. So if any of this is wrong, you know who to blame. They're going to be signing Lumo, who was actually playing over in the Chinese qualifiers to try and make it to Champions.
Okay.
And they're going to be looking at, I think it was Tenzu as well. So these are players that, again, I feel like they're coming from different places. Like I said, China qualifier, playing through the league, by like former Crest Gaming. And then Alan might come back after being made inactive.
Okay.
I don't think this team's gonna do that well.
That's it. Like you're really not selling it. It sounds like the pieces of the puzzle are just kind of being jammed in last second. See if maybe you got a pretty picture out of it. But
yeah, but you know it's not good when you go, all right, lads, we're making the roster inactive, and then you go, hey,
actually we need you back.
You wanna come back? Like, it's like, well, yeah, I guess, but any confidence that they would have had is probably in the bin, because you're like, right, get out now, and then you go, hey buddy, we actually need your help. Like, no, I just can't see that going great. You've also lost Gem Kim and Crystal, who are sort of the two players that were really the driving force of this roster. So, like, realistically, I think it's going to be difficult for them to do. And also, they played a lot of sort of obscure comps. Like, they were running stuff that Paperex would run. Like, one of their bind comps was Rain Arrays. So, like, it was super explosive. And that was both based off Gem Kim and Crystal. So, like, you can't carry those comps forward anymore because unless you pick up someone equally nuts. So it's going to be, I think, even just from like a coaching standpoint, it's going to be very difficult to find exact replacements. It does seem like they're attempting that. Like, I think the signing of Lumo, for example, I don't think it'll be a bad one. He seems to be a very flexible player, and I don't know about Tenzu so much. I don't know what his agent pool. It seems like he might be a bit more of a like duelist flex. Oh no, he plays a lot of initiators as well. So it seems like they're just signing flexible players, which in the long run, fantastic for a first event where you are bringing back one of your players and you don't have a fifth even rumored. Probably not going to go great.
Yeah, unless they're really good at keeping secrets, I guess. It's
Well,
not
they
looking
also
pretty.
signed Demon One.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe Artis is taking a layover first. He's like, I'll sign you guys, but maybe this was a
I want to
condition
play
of
with
his signing.
SCARZ first.
It could have been, man. He saw what happened to them. Promising team poached after they failed to make it through, and he said, my heart goes out, man. I've seen these days back in UKCS. I'm coming. I'll save you guys. And
They
what a
also
good guy
used to have
Artis would
pretty
be
good
for that.
Apex Legends team. Maybe they'll just sub them in as well, just for banner.
It could be. Look, those guys have sick aim. They're tracking. They could be Odin players. That's all I'm saying. They would be.
Yeah, but
they
one
would
of them
be
has to
ready
play
go.
controller though, right? That's what Shroud said. So it must be true.
I guess so. It's fully accurate. I
That's
don't
where
have the
get all of my
credentials to
Apex
argue.
Legends news. I listen to Shroud.
All right. Okay. Is he a reliable source? I don't know him as a beacon of
I only
Apex
saw a
Legends
few angry
information.
comments, when after the clip that I watched, probably on TikTok. So yeah,
Fair play. I'll make sure to subscribe to Shroud's Apex Legends news network. Luckily, that brings us into today's sponsor. Have you heard about Apex? No, not quite.
I fucking wish.
By the way, you should timestamp your interview with Spin and put it below that.
Definitely.
To the point where we
Go
were
on,
talking
Zilf,
about
do that.
that Gemkin. Go on, good man,
Yeah.
Zilf. Go find the timestamp.
Yeah, you go find that, Zilf.
Thanks,
I
Zilf.
definitely expect you to do that.
Appreciate
you. Yeah, I think for both, like with SCARZ and FENNEL, both like having to, FENNEL more so just having to find a replacement for someone who was smurfing.
That is unfortunate.
And SCARZ having to field a roster because right now it's just Yoshi versus the world.
I've seen some video games bestsellers actually with the same plot. So I'm watching the story closely.
Maybe they bring in Benkai because he's already got the dinosaur uniform to go alongside him. But
It could work.
No, I think to finish, obviously we normally do a split decision, but because this has been more event focused, I think we just look at like what our expectations are. Maybe a top two. Although I've already said mine, so it's not really that exciting. I said DRX Fnatic, which I think is the most obvious.
Yeah, it's very
choice.
reasonable. Very level
That's why
headed.
you're gonna say Foot because you will.
Me, no. I haven't even been promised one single piece of merchandise. Not one has been promised
See, if I
to me.
put Foot Fnatic, that
this
would
prediction.
actually be my full merch shill because they are the two orgs that sent me the most shit. I mean, wonderful stuff.
To be honest, like my mind was drifting to Fnatic DRX. That's maybe where I want to stay, but I'm gonna roll the dice on it. I'm gonna put Foot in there, and I don't think it's gonna be Foot Fnatic. I think Foot versus DRX. That's what the die
So
are telling me.
You don't have Fnatic making the top two.
For a simple reason, Tom. I want to believe in Foot. I think DRX regionally it would be disrespectful not to give it to them. And for Fnatic, they can take a loss in my prediction, being as they're probably going to win 2 trophies internationally this year, so they can feel pretty comfortable.
I realized you said that actually. Yeah, you were like next year they're gonna minimum win a trophy.
Internationals,
but they're not gonna win.
Internationals, it's all good.
They're not gonna win Red Bull home ground.
See, this is the thing about a good movie, Tom. It's not about I don't want to follow the best fighter in the world fighting some people and winning, right? I want to see the best fighter in the world get knocked down a peg. They flew across the world. They went to Japan again, but no trophy this time.
Did you
and then
watch
they've got to
Rocky
bounce back.
recently or something? Is that what?
All 4. Are there more than 4? Probably. Those are great
and then
movies,
I watched Expendables.
hey, don't diss. The first Expendables is a great movie. I'll say that. Fantastic.
Is it?
It really
do you
is.
just like the actors?
I like
And
the
I'm
actors.
using
They're cool.
I'm using actors lightly in that.
I like the movie stars. How about that? I like they're cool.
the explosions.
It's very cool. It taps into my masculinity. It makes me feel great.
100% you're on your phone and just wait for something to explode.
I'm on a plane and I'm
How
half
many of
falling
those did
asleep,
they
just
make?
waking up.
It's completely off topic.
I'm just waking up to the explosions on the plane. I think it's 4, right? Expendables
4.
5. Let's have a look. Teaser trailer 1 day ago. All right, let's go. On to today's sponsor, Expendables 5 in theaters
Fifth one?
at some point.
I'm not gonna lie. I only thought there was 2.
I don't know if it's. Is this real? It doesn't look right.
Wait, there's the 4th Expendables. They called it Expend 4 bulls.
What? No, they didn't. Is this like 7 in it all over again? They did. Expend for bless.
I need
Expend
to
for
move away from this.
bless.
This is making me unhappy.
That's amazing. Have you seen, the movie Seven, or Sevenin, as it should be called? 1995
Sorry,
classic.
what?
Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman. Beautiful movie.
It rings
yeah.
a bell.
It's beautiful, but they took 7, they took the V out, they put the number 7 there, so it's Sevenin technically.
Right.
And
Okay.
it hurts my
But
brain just a little bit.
Anyway,
Just a little bit.
away from the Expendables and whatever else we're
Expend
talking about.
for bless.
Yes, you think the top 2 of this event is
Foot
gonna be
DRX.
Foot DRX. Who's in your top 4 then?
Fnatic and Cloud9.
Okay.
Keeping that level.
I-
Some upset matches. These things happen. Jet
Yeah,
lag. Somebody's ill.
I think that's the thing.
don't
It's
know.
kind of rough because I do think the bottom 3 are looking like they're going to be the Japanese teams unless Carlisle can work miracles and also find out who their last player is. And I'm trying to think who their last player could be that I would be like, oh shit, this is gonna be the difference maker. 100 Thieves. I think if they had Boostio, if that's actually gonna happen, I probably would have put them in there.
Yeah.
But I think even just the time that they'll need to try and sort things out. Cloud9 have already been playing tournaments. They've looked good. Whippy being back has been fantastic. So I think I have to edge them. And yeah, Foot I think are going to be on a high at the moment. And I think if Mr. Fallen's better as well,
I hope
I
he
feel
is.
like
Yeah,
people
well.
don't know how difficult it is to play against like CNET and Cracks. Because those two, they just do at least like 3 mind-numbing things every single game. So I have to put them in the top 4. I am going to go Fnatic DRX because it's the most obvious, and
I think so.
I'm boring.
You play
So, there you
it
go.
safe, Tom. I respect that.
Yeah.
I respect that. Coming in today, I thought you were going to say DRX SCARZ, but you've surprised
Definitely.
me. You've
I'm a
surprised
big
me.
Yoshi fan.
I knew it. Whoa! All right. Didn't know you paid for a cameo. Let's go. Play the rest of it.
Oh yeah, no, they're gonna carry that on. But yeah, I think that those 2 teams. I think FENNEL losing a player, but hey, you know what? Luckily for us, there's might be some angry people in the comments telling us why Japanese Valorant's about to take over the world.
And hey,
I kind of
maybe
hope
it will.
they're right.
Maybe it will.
Luckily, we're guaranteed at least one of the Japanese teams making it to day 2 because 6 teams make it through. So we're definitely going to see them. Grand Finals day might be a little bit tougher, but I'm hopeful that ZETA will play out of the bag. I'm also hopeful they'll play a little bit more loose. Like I think players like
Yeah.
Depp, when they're just let off the leash, is going to be exciting. But there you go. That is our preview for Red Bull home ground in Tokyo. And we're going to be heading over there in just over a week.
Yes,
when
we
this
will.
comes out, it'll probably be a week. Bear in mind, this is now 9:36. No, I'm not.
God damn it.
But either way, guys, hope you enjoyed. You've just found out more about the Expendables than you probably ever wanted to know. But let us know down below who you think are going to be winning. Are there any surprises? Are there any players in particular that you are specifically excited for? And is there anything else that you want Zilv to add into the video?
Just
Either way-
remember, expend for less, for bless.
Okay. But either way, we are going to be recording our next podcast once we get back, as we're taking a bit of an extended break while in Japan, wouldn't you? Like, chance to just explore a beautiful country. So we'll probably be back after the 21st, 22nd with the next one. So if there's anything specific you'd like us to talk about, make sure to write it down below. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll both see you next time.